They say every story has a reason, but the one I'm about to tell you, it's a warning, a memory that refuses to stay buried, no matter how much I try to forget. I don't care if you believe me or not. All I ask is that you listen, really listen, till the very end, because somewhere in the middle of this story, you'll realize it could have happened to you. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe. Some stories are meant to entertain you, but this one might follow you. It was the summer of 2012, the last time I visited Grandma's old countryside house. She had always warned me never to wander into the backyard after midnight, but I was 17 and full of curiosity. That night, the air felt heavier than usual, like the silence itself was watching me. The house sat alone on the edge of the woods, its walls creaking under the pressure of the night wind. Grandma had gone to bed early, leaving only the soft ticking of the hallway clock. When the hands finally reached 12, I found myself standing by the window, staring at the faint outline of the backyard. Something inside me whispered, "Go outside, just once." The moon hung low, pale and swollen, spilling silver light across the uneven grass. I stepped out barefoot, the cool soil pressing against my skin. Every sound, the chirp of crickets, the distant owl, seemed unnaturally sharp. I could smell damp earth and something faintly metallic, like rust. Grandma's garden tools still leaned against the wooden fence, untouched for years. I remembered her voice, trembling but firm. "Never go back there after dark. They don't like to be disturbed." I used to laugh when she said that, assuming she meant spirits or wild animals. But that night, standing alone under that eerie moonlight, I wasn't so sure. The deeper I walked, the stranger the air became, thick and still, as though the night itself was holding its breath. The garden path, once familiar, now looked distorted, bending in directions it shouldn't. My shadow stretched unnaturally long, twisting along the fence like it was alive. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I heard it. A soft humming, distant but distinct, coming from behind Grandma's old tool shed. It wasn't music. It was more like whispering, layered voices speaking in rhythm. I froze. The hairs on my arms rose. Every instinct screamed for me to go back, but my feet kept moving forward. Behind the shed, the ground dipped into a shallow hollow where the grass never grew. I remembered Grandma calling it the resting patch. She said the earth there was cursed, that even sunlight refused to touch it. Now, in the glow of the moon, I saw faint indentations in the soil, circles, like someone had drawn them with a stick. The humming grew louder, blending into a faint, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat buried beneath the ground. My throat tightened, then, for a moment, the air shifted and carried a scent I knew too well, Grandpa's old cologne. But he had been dead for nearly 10 years. I whispered his name, barely audible. "Grandpa." The moment I spoke, the humming stopped. The silence that followed was unbearable, thick enough to feel against my skin. I took a cautious step back, and that's when I saw it. Something pale rising slowly from the soil, like fingers pushing through from underneath. I stumbled, falling onto the damp ground. My breath caught in my throat as the shape continued to emerge. A hand, wrinkled and gray, clutching at the earth. My mind refused to believe what my eyes saw. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then, the hand stopped moving, and I heard Grandma's voice on the porch. "Come inside, child. Right now." I spun around. She stood there in her nightgown, her silhouette faint against the dim porch light. "Don't look back," she said, her tone sharp, almost trembling. I hesitated. Something about her eyes didn't look right. They glowed faintly in the dark, reflecting the moonlight like a cat's. "Grandma?" I whispered. She took a step closer, her expression unreadable. "I said don't look back," she hissed. Her voice cracked on the last word. Against every instinct, I turned my head slightly, and the hand behind me was gone. The ground was smooth again. Only the faint smell of wet soil remained. Grandma's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she looked sad. When I returned inside, Grandma locked the door behind me and slid the heavy wooden bolt across. Her hands trembled as she lit a candle, the flame flickering wildly. "You shouldn't have gone out there," she muttered. I tried to ask what was happening, but she only shook her head. "It's not my fear," she whispered, eyes darting toward the window. "It's what they remember." The candlelight cast long shadows across the walls, and for a split second, I saw movement in the reflection of the glass. Something shifting outside, just beyond the fence. Grandma blew out the candle. "If you hear your name tonight," she said softly, "don't answer." That night, I lay awake on the old couch in the living room, staring at the ceiling. The house groaned as the wind pressed against the windows. I could still feel the chill of the backyard on my skin. Every creak made my pulse quicken. Around 2 a.m., I heard it again, the same faint humming from before, now coming from outside my window. My heart thudded painfully as I pulled the blanket over my head. Then, clear as day, I heard Grandma's voice whisper from the other side of the glass. "Come outside, child. It's safe now." But I could see her shadow in the hallway at the same time. My breath hitched. I sat up slowly, straining to listen. The voice outside repeated, softer this time, "Come outside, child." My skin crawled. The voice sounded exactly like Grandma, but there was something off. Too calm, too smooth. I peeked through the edge of the curtain and froze. There she was, or at least something that looked like her, standing barefoot in the grass, smiling up at my window. Her nightgown fluttered gently, though there was no wind. I blinked once, twice, and she was gone. I stumbled back, heart hammering, and that's when the real Grandma's door creaked open down the hall. She stepped into the living room, candle in hand, her face pale. "You heard it, didn't you?" she asked quietly. I nodded, too shaken to speak. She sighed deeply, setting the candle down. "It comes for the curious," she whispered, almost to herself. "Every generation, it calls one of us." I didn't understand. "What is it?" I asked. Her eyes glistened with tears as she said, "The one buried where your grandfather stood last." My stomach turned cold. "But Grandpa's grave is behind the shed." She nodded slowly. "And that's exactly where you were standing tonight." Grandma's words sank into me like ice. I couldn't stop picturing that gray hand rising from the soil. What happens if it calls someone? I whispered. She didn't answer immediately. The candle flickered, casting her face in trembling light. "They follow the voice," she finally said. "And once they answer, they never come back." The way she said it made my stomach knot. I glanced at the clock, 2:47 a.m. I wanted to believe she was just trying to scare me into staying inside. But deep down, I could feel something watching from the darkness outside, something that had heard me step into that backyard and wasn't done with me yet. Grandma made me sleep in her room that night. She said the spirit couldn't cross the threshold as long as the old cross above her bed remained. I lay beside her, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to her whisper prayers under her breath. Around 3:15, the wind picked up, slamming against the windows hard enough to rattle the frames. Then, faintly, I heard my name again, Daniel, drawn out, soft, almost tender. I shut my eyes tight, gripping the blanket. Grandma's hand suddenly clutched mine. Her grip was strong, trembling. "Don't move," she hissed. "It's testing you." My heart pounded. The voice outside grew impatient, closer. "Daniel, come help me." It was the same voice, but this time it sounded like my mother. The same gentle tone she used when I scraped my knee as a child. My breath caught. My mother had died when I was 11. My mind raced. How could something know her voice? Tears welled up as I heard it again, pleading softly. "It hurts, Daniel. Please." I almost rose, but Grandma yanked my arm down. "It knows what you miss," she whispered. "That's how it pulls you." Her eyes shimmered with terror, but there was also sadness there, as if she knew the pain too well. The voice outside turned angry, guttural. "Answer me, boy." The floorboards under the window began to creak. Something heavy stepped across the porch. The door handle twisted once, twice. Grandma whispered a prayer, so fast I couldn't catch the words. Then came the knock, slow, deliberate, 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. My skin prickled. The smell of damp earth filled the room again, mixed with something sour, decayed. Grandma stood up, her hands shaking. She walked to the door and pressed her palm against it. "You can't have him," she said softly. The house seemed to hum in response, a deep vibration that came from the walls themselves. The candle blew out on its own. For a long moment, everything was silent. Then, from the other side of the door, I heard laughter, low and distant, like something echoing from underground. It faded slowly, replaced by the distant sound of shoveling dirt. Grandma didn't move until dawn, when the first light touched the curtains. She finally turned to me, her face pale and exhausted. "It's gone for now." I sat up, my throat dry. "What is that thing?" I demanded. She looked at me as if deciding how much to tell. "It's a promise broken," she said finally. "And your grandfather made it long before you were born." That morning, Grandma refused to step outside. She boiled tea in silence, her eyes darting toward the backyard window every few minutes. I couldn't shake the image of that pale hand in the soil. "A promise?" I asked again. She sighed. "He made a deal to save his brother's life. It worked, but the price wasn't paid in full." I frowned. "What kind of deal?" She stirred her tea slowly. "The kind you make when you're desperate. The kind that waits decades to collect." Her voice cracked as she added, "It should have taken him, but it found me first. And now it's after you." All day, the house felt wrong. The clocks ticked unevenly. The floorboards groaned without anyone stepping on them. When night came, Grandma placed a bowl of salt by every door and window. "It doesn't like purity," she muttered. I tried to act brave, but every shadow looked alive. Around midnight, I heard whispering again, only this time, it came from inside the walls. I pressed my ear to the plaster and froze. Voices murmured beneath the surface, dozens of them, whispering my name in overlapping tones. Some sounded like children, others like old men. Then one voice rose above them all, deep, familiar, and furious. "You broke the circle." I stumbled back from the wall, my pulse racing. "Grandma!" I shouted. She rushed in with her rosary, muttering prayers. "It's waking," she said. "You walked on its ground last night. You broke the binding." Her hands trembled as she drew a circle of salt around me. The whispers grew louder, circling the room like a storm. My vision blurred as the candlelight flickered violently. The air turned icy. Then, just above the noise, I heard one word, return. The floor shook beneath my feet, and the smell of dirt filled the room again. Grandma's eyes widened. "It's calling you back to the grave." The house shook harder. A photo frame fell from the wall and shattered. Inside was an old picture, Grandma, Grandpa, and a man I didn't recognize standing near the same backyard fence. The stranger looked almost identical to me. My blood ran cold. "Who's this?" I asked. Grandma's lips trembled. "Your grandfather's brother," she whispered. "The one he tried to save." The voices in the wall turned frantic, chanting a name I couldn't make out. The light flickered until the candle died completely. Then, in total darkness, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the hallway toward Grandma's room. I could see the faint outline of feet under the door, bare, caked in mud. The knob turned halfway and stopped. Then a man's voice spoke, low and raspy. "It's been long enough, Helen." Grandma froze. "Stay behind me," she whispered. The door creaked open just an inch. I caught a glimpse of something impossible. A face that looked like Grandpa's, but hollow, as if the skin was stretched over empty air. "You promised me peace," it said, voice trembling with fury. Grandma raised her hand, clutching her rosary. "And I gave you everything," she cried. The entity smiled. "Not him," it said, pointing at me. "He's the final debt." Grandma screamed, "Run," before the air itself seemed to split open. The walls trembled, and the floorboards cracked under my feet as I bolted toward the hallway. Behind me, I heard the sound of something dragging, heavy, wet, and unnatural. Grandma's voice echoed in prayer, but it was swallowed by a deep growl that rattled my chest. I didn't stop until I reached the kitchen. Every light in the house flickered, revealing shadows that didn't belong to me. I turned toward the back door. It was wide open. Cold air rushed in, carrying that same faint scent of rust and earth. The backyard was waiting, and somehow I knew it wanted me to step out again. I hesitated at the doorframe, gripping the knob so tightly my fingers hurt. The world outside was unnaturally still. No insects, no wind, no sound. Just that impossible quiet. Then, from the center of the backyard, I saw a movement. A figure stood beside the tool shed, facing me, its head tilted slightly, as if curious. The moonlight revealed its shape. A man in a tattered coat, his face hidden in shadow. My voice caught in my throat. "Grandpa." The figure raised a trembling hand and pointed at the ground where the resting patch was. I blinked once, and it was suddenly closer, now only a few feet away, mouth moving silently. I stumbled back, slamming the door shut and locking it. My hand shook violently. Then I heard Grandma scream from the hallway, sharp, terrified, cut short too soon. My body moved before my mind did. I ran back, tripping over broken floorboards. The bedroom door was open, the candle extinguished. The smell of damp soil filled the air. "Grandma?" I whispered. No answer. The rosary she held earlier lay broken on the floor, beads scattered like tiny black seeds. I knelt beside it, trembling. That's when I heard breathing, slow, heavy, coming from beneath the bed. My pulse spiked. I leaned down just enough to look. Two glowing eyes stared back at me. I screamed and jumped back, slamming my head against the wall. The eyes didn't move, they just blinked slowly, like they were studying me. Then a voice crawled out from under the bed, deep and familiar. "You shouldn't have come here, boy." My skin went cold. The thing beneath the bed began to drag itself out, inch by inch. It wasn't Grandpa, not anymore. Its face sagged, half rotted, yet still wearing that faint smile I remember from childhood photos. She thought she could keep me buried. It croaked, but the earth never forgets. I tried to run, but it reached out, its cold fingers grazing my ankle. I felt a jolt, like static and ice. The next thing I knew, I was outside, standing barefoot in the backyard again. I didn't remember walking there. The moon was brighter now, almost blinding. The ground beneath me pulsed, as if something alive was breathing under the soil. My hands were covered in dirt. My head ached, and distant voices whispered my name again. I turned toward the shed and saw Grandma standing beside it. She looked younger somehow, her hair darker, her skin smooth. "You shouldn't have broken the circle," she said. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. She smiled sadly. "You're not supposed to be awake yet." I blinked, and suddenly it was morning. Birds were chirping, sunlight filled the kitchen window, and Grandma was cooking breakfast as if nothing had happened. "You slept like a rock," she said cheerfully. My body felt sore, my mind foggy. Was it a dream? I muttered. She looked at me strangely. "Dreams don't leave footprints," she said, and gestured toward the back door. My stomach tightened. Muddy footprints trailed from the yard into the kitchen, ending right where I stood. My breath caught. Grandma smiled faintly. "Eat first," she said softly. "You'll need your strength for tonight." I didn't ask why. I just sat there, trembling, pretending this was all normal. Throughout the day, Grandma acted as if nothing had happened. She hummed old hymns, baked bread, and even told me stories from her childhood. But every now and then, I caught her staring out the window toward the shed, lips moving silently. I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was breathing around me. The walls expanding and contracting, the floorboards shifting when I wasn't looking. Around sunset, she handed me a candle and a jar of salt. "When midnight comes," she said, "stand at your window. If it calls again, don't run this time. You need to finish what was started." Her tone was calm, but her eyes looked hollow. When the clock struck 12, I stood by my window, just as she said. The candlelight flickered against the glass, and my reflection looked strange. Paler, older, almost transparent. Then I heard it again. "Daniel." The voice was softer now, pleading. I swallowed hard and forced myself to stay still. "I know you can hear me." It whispered. It wasn't my fault. She lied. My heart raced. The candle's flame bent toward the window, as if pulled by invisible breath. She kept me buried alive. The voice said, "Help me." My throat tightened. Part of me wanted to open that window, and part of me wanted to die before doing it. The whispering grew louder, desperate. "You have to see," it said. "You deserve the truth." My reflection started to change. My eyes darkened, my mouth moving without sound. I stumbled back, horrified. Then the window pane cracked, splitting down the middle. A cold gust filled the room, blowing out the candle. I turned toward the hallway. Grandma stood there, tears streaming down her face. "It's too late," she whispered. The floorboards began to rumble again. "What did you do?" I shouted. She shook her head. "I traded my soul for yours," she said softly, "but it wants both." The lights flickered, and the entire house began to groan like something massive was rising beneath it. The walls started to bleed, a dark, tar-like substance seeping from every corner. The air filled with whispers, louder than ever. Grandma fell to her knees, clutching her chest. "Don't let it in," she gasped. I reached for her, but her skin was cold as stone. The floor split open beneath us, revealing black soil writhing like flesh. From the darkness, two pale hands emerged, followed by that same smiling face. "The debt is paid," it said, voice echoing from everywhere at once. I tried to pull Grandma away, but she was sinking, dragged down by invisible arms. Her last words before the earth swallowed her were a whisper. "Run before it becomes you." I didn't remember running, but suddenly I was outside again, gasping for air under the pale moonlight. The backyard looked different. Wrong. The trees leaned inward, their branches twisted like claws, reaching toward me. The shed was gone. In its place stood a mound of freshly turned soil, pulsing faintly with light from beneath. My legs trembled as I stepped closer. I could hear whispers coming from inside the earth, overlapping voices calling my name. Then I heard Grandma's voice, faint in pain. "Don't dig, Daniel." But her voice came from underground. I froze, realizing the truth. Whatever had dragged her down was still there, and it was speaking through her. The earth began to move. The soil rippled like waves, and a faint, rotten smell filled the air. My instinct screamed at me to run, but something deeper, a pull I couldn't explain, kept me frozen. The mound split open with a wet crack. A hand reached out again, but this time it wasn't gray or wrinkled. It looked exactly like mine, perfectly human, perfectly alive. I stumbled backward, shaking my head. "What are you?" I shouted. The hand pointed toward me. Then in my own voice it said, "I'm what you left behind." My heart stopped. The hand gripped the dirt and began to pull an entire body upward, my body. I watched in horror as my double crawled out of the earth, covered in mud, eyes lifeless yet fixated on me. It smiled, a twisted reflection of my own expression. "You shouldn't have woken up," it said, its voice eerily calm. I stumbled back, tripping over the garden stones. "This isn't real," I shouted. My double tilted its head. "That's what they all say." The air grew colder. I could see my breath now, thick and heavy. Grandma's deal wasn't to save your grandfather, it continued. It was to bring you back. My skin crawled, back from where I demanded. The thing's grin widened. "From where you died." My head spun. "I'm not dead," I shouted. The double stepped closer, its eyes dark and endless. "Then why can't you remember the night you fell?" My body went numb. Flashes hit me. Water, screaming, the sound of cracking wood. A lake. I saw myself sinking beneath its surface. Hands reaching for me that never made it. "No," I whispered. "That was years ago." The double smiled sadly. "You didn't survive. Grandma made a deal that night to bring you back. She buried what remained of you behind the shed. That's why the ground calls to you." My heart pounded in denial. "You're lying." "Then why?" it said softly. "Do you cast two shadows?" I looked down and froze. Two shadows stretched across the grass behind me, one normal, one moving on its own. My chest tightened. "Stop," I whispered. The second shadow rose from the ground like smoke, forming a vague, human shape, mine. The real me trembled, unable to breathe. The air felt thick, charged, and full of whispers. My double stepped closer, now inches from my face. "The earth remembers the truth," it said. "You belong to it." Before I could react, it pressed its muddy hand against my chest. Pain exploded through my ribs like fire. I fell to my knees, gasping. I could feel something pulling inside me, pulling downward. I screamed, clutching my chest as the ground beneath me began to sink. The soil turned soft, sucking me in like quicksand. My hands clawed at the dirt, desperate for anything to hold on to. My double stood above me, watching with pity. "Don't fight it," it said. "You're only making it worse." My legs were already halfway buried. I shouted for Grandma, for anyone, but the night answered only with silence. Just before the dirt reached my chest, I saw something glinting near the shed's remains. The broken rosary. I reached for it, fingertips brushing the silver cross. The moment I touched it, the world erupted in blinding white light. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in Grandma's living room. The morning sun poured through the curtains. Everything was quiet, too quiet. I sat up slowly, heart pounding. The house looked untouched. No cracks, no blood, no sign of chaos. My clothes were clean. For a moment, I thought maybe it had been a nightmare. Then I noticed a photo frame on the mantel, the one of Grandma, Grandpa, and his brother. But now, there was a fourth figure in the picture. Me, standing where the brother once had been. My stomach dropped. My reflection in the glass smiled back, even though I wasn't smiling. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. "No!" I whispered. I ran to the hallway mirror. My reflection didn't move. It just stared, head tilted, the same way the figure had in the yard. "You can't keep running," it said, its voice echoing in my mind. My skin crawled as the reflection's mouth split into an inhuman grin. "You're just the echo," it whispered. "I'm what's real." The lights in the house flickered once, then died completely. In the darkness, I heard the creak of footsteps, mine, moving toward me from a mirror's side. The sound stopped just as I felt cold breath on my neck. "Time to go home," it whispered. The mirror shattered, throwing shards across the room. I stumbled back, my arm bleeding from a deep cut. I blinked, and suddenly the entire house was gone. I stood alone in the backyard again, but everything was gray, lifeless. The sky hung low, swirling with mist. The trees were nothing but skeletons. I turned toward the house, or what was left of it. The structure was half buried, tilted into the earth like it had been sinking for years. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "Where am I?" I whispered. A voice behind me answered, "Where you've always been." I turned and saw dozens of faces rising from the soil. They were all me, every single one. Different ages, different expressions, all staring at me with hollow eyes. Some smiled, others wept. One reached out and said, "We all tried to wake up." I stumbled backward, choking on air. "This isn't real." I screamed. The ground split open beneath me, revealing an endless pit of light and shadows. "It's time," one of the voices said. "You've been borrowed too long." I felt my body lifting, weightless, as if gravity no longer applied. My skin started to fade into dust. The last thing I heard before everything turned to white was Grandma's voice, soft and distant. "Rest now, my boy, rest." The next sound I heard was faint, a soft humming, the same lullaby Grandma used to sing when I was a child. Only this time, it came from beneath the ground. I knelt down, pressing my ear against the cold, damp soil. The tune grew louder, clearer, until I could almost make out the words. "Sleep, my child, the moon will hide." My blood froze. That was the song she sang the night before she died. I pulled away, heart thundering, staring at the patch of dirt that pulsed slightly, as if something underneath was breathing. I scrambled backward, kicking up dirt, and that's when the ground split open just a few feet away. It wasn't a wide crack, but deep, impossibly deep. The humming stopped. In its place came a whisper, "You shouldn't have come back." I stumbled to my feet, shining the flashlight into the crevice, but only illuminated darkness. My mind screamed for me to run, yet something deeper, curiosity or madness, made me stay. The smell of rot drifted out, and I could swear I saw a strand of gray hair moving just below the surface. Before I could blink, the ground shifted again. The dirt rose, forming the faint outline of a human face beneath the surface. Eyes closed, mouth slightly open. I recognized the curve of the cheeks, the wrinkles near the eyes. Grandma. My throat closed up as I whispered her name, but the moment I did, the eyes beneath the soil snapped open, completely black. I screamed, stumbling back, dropping my flashlight. It rolled into the shadows, flickering weakly. The face beneath the earth began to distort, mouth stretching into an inhuman grin that seemed to widen endlessly. The grin widened until the soil cracked and something wet dripped from the corners of that impossible mouth. I could hear bones cracking beneath the earth as the figure beneath began to rise. I turned to run, but my legs felt like they were sinking into the ground. The more I struggled, the deeper I sank. The soil around my ankles turned cold and sticky, like thick mud mixed with something else, blood. Maybe. I clawed at the ground, but it was useless. Behind me, I heard the soft sound of someone's footstep. Slow, deliberate, heavy. I couldn't bring myself to look back, but the smell hit me. Old perfume, lavender, and dust, the scent of Grandma's room. Then came her voice, whispering right next to my ear. "You were supposed to stay inside, my dear." My skin prickled, and I dared to glance back. What I saw wasn't Grandma, not really. It was her shape, her clothes, her familiar smile, but her eyes were black hollows, and her skin sagged like melted wax. "Come here," she said softly, extending her hand, nails cracked and blackened. "You look so much like your father." I froze. My father had died years ago, in this very backyard, according to family whispers. He was found near the old tree, face pale, eyes wide open, as though he'd seen something unspeakable. I never asked Grandma what happened, and now I was beginning to understand why. The figure in front of me, whatever it was, tilted its head, the sound of snapping bones echoing through the night. "He tried to leave," she said. "Will you?" My entire body screamed for me to run, but my feet were still trapped in the pulsing soil. The earth began to tighten around my legs, pulling me down inch by inch. I screamed, grabbing at anything, roots, rocks, even grass, but everything crumbled in my hands. The ghostly figure of Grandma leaned closer, her lips barely moving. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's just your turn now." The words echoed in my skull, twisting into 100 overlapping voices. My vision blurred. For a moment, I thought I saw other faces behind her, pale, sunken, all watching me from the shadows. Some were smiling, some were crying. One whispered, "We waited for you." Suddenly, the ground released me. I fell backward onto the dirt, gasping for air. The figures vanished, swallowed by the dark. My flashlight blinked out completely, plunging me into pure blackness. I scrambled up, brushing the mud from my clothes, and realized the humming had stopped, replaced by silence, so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. The wind had died. Even the crickets were gone. I turned slowly, expecting to see the house in the distance, but it wasn't there. Only endless trees surrounded me, tall and unmoving. The backyard had changed. I spun around, panic rising in my throat. The fence, the shed, the swing, gone. In their place were thick trees with gnarled roots and a faint mist crawling across the ground. "No, no, no, no," I whispered. It was as if I'd stepped into another place, or another time. I called out for Grandma, for anyone, but my voice seemed to vanish into the fog. That's when I heard it. Faint footsteps circling me. I turned, flashlight barely flickering back to life, and for a moment, I saw a movement between the trees, tall, thin figures watching. The figures didn't move closer. They just stood there, unmoving shadows with no faces, only outlines that shimmered faintly in the mist. I took a step back, and they took one forward, perfectly in sync. My chest tightened. I swung the flashlight wildly, but each time the light hit them, they disappeared, only to reappear in a different spot. I couldn't tell how many there were anymore. The sound of breathing surrounded me, heavy and slow. Then one of them whispered a low, guttural sound that crawled into my ears. "She's waiting." The word "she's waiting" echoed in my mind like a curse. I turned in circles, trying to find where the voice came from, but it was everywhere, above, behind, beneath me. The trees seemed to close in, their branches twisting into grotesque shapes that almost resemble faces. My flashlight flickered again, then steadied, casting trembling light across the fog. There, between the roots, something glimmered, a locket. I recognized it instantly. Grandma's locket. I picked it up, hands shaking, and the moment my fingers touched the metal, a child's laughter echoed softly through the woods. The laughter was light at first, like a memory, but then it grew louder, sharper, more distorted. I dropped the locket, but it stuck to my palm like it had fused with my skin. The metal burned cold, sending a wave of numbness up my arm. I screamed and tried to pry it off, but the clasp wouldn't break. The laughter turned into a shriek, high-pitched and endless. Then, through the ringing in my ears, I heard a whisper from the locket itself. "You opened what should have stayed buried." I froze. The ground beneath me began to tremble. The soil cracked open again, this time in a wide circle around me. I stumbled backward as thick liquid oozed from the fissures. Not water, not mud, but something darker. It smelled of decay and iron. From the black pool rose a hand, small and skeletal, reaching for my ankle. I kicked it away, but another emerged, then another, clawing their way up from the earth. Dozens of them. Some were child-sized, others long and twisted. They grabbed at my legs, my arms, my clothes. I screamed, but my voice drowned beneath their whispering. They weren't saying words I could understand, but the sound felt ancient, like the earth itself was chanting. I fell to my knees, pulling desperately to break free, but each time I yanked one hand off, two more latched onto me. My body was being dragged toward the center of the black pool. Then, through the chaos, I heard a single familiar voice cut through the whispers. "Don't fight them." It was Grandma's voice, calm, commanding, almost soothing. I looked up, and there she was, standing across the pool, smiling softly as the shadows ride around her. She looked younger now. Not the frail woman I remembered, but the version of her from old photographs. Tall, radiant, eyes sharp and kind. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally through the mist. "But now that you have, you must finish what he started." I wanted to ask who, my father? But the words wouldn't come. She stepped closer, her feet not sinking into the black pool like mine did. The shadows released me instantly, backing away like obedient servants. "Follow me," she said softly. "It's time you saw the truth." I followed her because I didn't know what else to do. The air was thick, almost suffocating, but she moved effortlessly through it. As we walked deeper into the forest, the mist began to glow faintly, a sickly green hue that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Grandma," I whispered, "what is this place?" She didn't answer. Her figure flickered slightly, like a candle flame in the wind. Then ahead of us, the trees opened into a clearing I didn't recognize, a massive stone circle half buried in dirt and roots. Symbols were carved into stones, glowing faintly under the moonlight. "This is where it began," she said, turning to face me. "Before the house, before the family, before the lies." I stared at her, heart pounding. The carvings on the stones looked ancient. Spirals, hands, eyes, and something that looked like a crescent moon swallowing the sun. "Your father tried to destroy it," she continued, "but the bond was already made. Blood remembers, even when we try to forget." She stepped closer, reaching for my face. "You came here because you were called. The earth remembers you." I took a step back, shaking my head. "Call for what?" Her smile faded. "To take your place." Before I could move, the ground beneath the stone circle began to quake. The symbols blazed brighter, and a low rumble rose from below, vibrating through my bones. What do you mean? I shouted, but Grandma's voice was drowned out by the sound of something enormous shifting beneath us. Cracks spread across the stones, and from within, I saw movement. Something alive, something ancient, the air filled with the scent of burning soil. I turned to run, but Grandma's hand shot out, gripping my wrist with unnatural strength. "Don't fight it," she hissed. Her eyes were no longer warm or kind. They burned with dark light. "You were born for this." I tried to pull away, but her grip tightened, her skin cracking to reveal something black beneath, like tar. The rumbling grew louder, and suddenly, a figure began to rise from the center of the stone circle. It wasn't human, tall, skeletal, with horns curling from its head. Its body was made of earth and ash, and where its eyes should have been, there were only two glowing voids. It turned its gaze toward me. The world seemed to tilt. The trees bent backward. The air vibrated, and every sound vanished except for the deep, echoing voice that came from the creature's hollow chest. "You carry the blood," it said, its voice shaking the ground. "You open the gate." I fell to my knees, shaking uncontrollably as Grandma stepped beside the creature, bowing. "It's done," she whispered. "The last one has come." The creature raised its clawed hand toward me. My mind screamed to run, but my body refused. The air around me grew heavy and dark, and I knew something had just begun. The air thickened until breathing felt impossible. My lungs burned, my vision dimmed, and that voice, that terrible voice, kept repeating inside my head, "You open the gate." The creature's hand hovered just above my forehead, and I could feel its heat, a searing pulse that crawled under my skin. I tried to scream, but my voice came out as a whisper. Grandma, or what used to be her, watched silently, her face expressionless, her eyes reflecting that unholy light. The creature leaned closer, its breath reeking of earth and decay. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying flat on the ground. The mist had cleared. The stone circle was gone. The trees stood silent, bathed in pale moonlight. My hands trembled as I sat up, scanning the surroundings. Everything looked normal again, too normal. Even the air smelled clean, fresh, like after a storm. For a moment, I thought it had been a dream. Then I noticed the locket still in my hand, open this time. Inside wasn't Grandma's picture anymore. It was mine. I stared at it, heart pounding. Beneath my photo, someone had carved one word: chosen. I ran. I didn't care where. Branches tore at my clothes and face, but I kept running until I saw the faint outline of Grandma's house through the trees. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The house looked wrong. The paint was peeling, windows broken, and ivy crawled across the walls like veins. The front door hung open, swaying slightly in the wind. "Grandma?" I called, my voice shaking. No answer. I stepped inside, the wooden floor groaning beneath my feet. Everything was covered in dust, thick layers of it, as if no one had lived here for years. The photos on the wall were faded, but one caught my attention. A family picture. My father, my grandmother, and me. But in this photo, I was older like I was now. I felt my throat tighten. This couldn't be real. I reached out to touch the frame, and the moment my fingers brushed it, the glass cracked. A whisper filled the room. "You've been here before." I froze, slowly turning toward the sound. It came from the hallway, dark, narrow, breathing softly. I took a step forward, and the floorboards creaked in rhythm with a second set of footsteps. The footsteps weren't mine. They echoed slowly, deliberately, like someone matching my pace in the shadows. I pointed my flashlight down the hall, but it flickered and died again. The only light came from the moon, seeping through the window. I held my breath, listening. Then, from the darkness, came a voice, faint, trembling. "Please, help me." My heart jumped. It sounded like a child. Against all logic, I followed the voice, moving deeper into the hallway. The smell of old wood and rock grew stronger with each step, until I reached the door at the end. Grandma's old room. The door was half open, swinging slightly, whispering on its hinges. I pushed it open, and the stench hit me. Dampness, decay. Something long dead. My flashlight flickered back on for a split second, just long enough to show a small figure sitting in the corner. A child, knees to chest, face buried in its arms. "Hey," I said, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" The child lifted its head slowly. My stomach twisted. It was me. The same clothes I wore when I was 10. The same scar on my chin. But the eyes, they were hollow, black, and endless. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. The younger version of me stood up, tilting its head unnaturally. "You left me here," it whispered, voice layered with echoes. "You forgot what happened." My mind reeled. "What are you talking about?" I shouted. The figure smiled, a perfect copy of mine, only twisted. "You buried her," it said. "You helped her." I shook my head violently. No, that's not true." But even as I said it, flashes hit me, brief, fragmented memories. My hands covered in dirt, Grandma's face pale in the moonlight, the sound of digging. My chest tightened. The child stepped closer, its bare feet silent on the floor. "You don't remember because she made you forget." My heart hammered as it pointed toward the window, but the earth remembers. I turned toward the window. The backyard stretched out under the moonlight, untouched. But now, I saw something I hadn't before. The ground near the old tree was uneven, a mound of freshly turned soil. I felt dizzy. The room began to tilt. What did I do? I whispered. The child's smile widened. "You finished the ritual," it said softly. "You brought her back." A scream tore through the night, shrill and familiar. Grandma's voice. I ran to the window, but what I saw below froze my blood. The earth near the tree was moving again, rising and falling like it was breathing. Then, slowly, a figure began to crawl out, gray hair tangled with mud, empty eyes glistening in the dark. It was her, Grandma, but this time, she wasn't a ghost or a memory. She was flesh, decayed and wrong, but real. "You called me back," she croaked, "and now you will stay." The ground beneath her split wide open again. The house trembled as the air grew thick and electric. I stumbled backward, tripping over broken furniture. The younger version of me laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "It's too late," it said. "The blood circle is complete." I tried to run, but the door slammed shut. The walls began to pulse, veins of darkness spreading across them. Grandma's voice filled the room, chanting in a language I couldn't understand. My reflection in the window started moving on its own, smiling while I screamed. And then, in a voice that wasn't mine, it whispered, "Welcome home." The walls groaned as if the house itself were alive, breathing in rhythm with the chanting that surrounded me. Every window rattled violently, the glass warping under invisible pressure. I clutched my head, screaming, but the sound was swallowed by that voice, my voice, echoing from the reflection. "You can't leave," it said. "You never did." I stumbled toward the door, but a handle was burning hot, branded my palm when I touched it. I yanked my hand back, skin blistering instantly. Then I heard slow, dragging footsteps in the hallway. Grandma was coming. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Silence. Then 3 gentle knocks. "Sweetheart." Her voice cooed, calm and warm, like she used a sound before bed. "It's time." I backed away, shaking my head. "Time for what?" I whispered. The door creaked open by itself, revealing her silhouette in the faint light. Hair matted, skin gray and peeling, eyes black and bottomless. She smiled softly, almost lovingly. "You promised, remember?" she said. "You promised to keep the circle unbroken." My mind screamed no, but my heart recognized her tone. It was the same voice that once sang me to sleep. She stepped into the room, and the temperature dropped instantly. Frost spread across the floorboards in spiderweb patterns. Her feet didn't touch the ground. I backed up until I hit the wall, the mirror at my side reflecting the impossible, her face flickering between life and death, between warmth and rot. "You buried me," she said, smiling wider. "And when you did, you bound yourself to me." I couldn't breathe. "You're not her," I gasped. Her grin split too wide. "Then why?" she whispered. "Do you still call me Grandma in your nightmares?" Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the broken mirror shard beside me and pointed at her. "Stay away," I shouted, but she didn't stop. The shard trembled in my grip as her shadow stretched across the floor, long, twisting, reaching for my feet. "You can't fight what you are," she said. "You think you came here by accident?" Her words hit me like a wave. The backyard, the ritual circle, the locket, the reflection. Everything was connected. She raised her hand, and my body moved on its own, the shard turning from her to me, pressing against my chest. My hand shook violently, trying to resist, but the force was too strong. I felt cold metal against my skin, the point digging just enough to draw a thin line of blood. Grandma's eyes lit up. "Yes," she breathed. "The offering." The walls pulsed faster, the veins spreading, reaching toward the ceiling. I fought against the invisible weight, tears streaming down my face. "Please," I begged. "I didn't mean to." Her expression softened for just a second, that same gentle, loving look I remembered. "Neither did I," she whispered. "But love always costs something." Suddenly, the weight lifted. I dropped the shard, falling to my knees, gasping. Grandma's figure flickered like a dying candle. Her expression changed, confusion, regret, sorrow. "They're coming," she whispered urgently. "You must run." I looked up, startled. "Who?" Her gaze darted to the window. Outside, the mist churned violently, shapes moving within it. "The ones I kept away for you," she said. "I can't hold them back anymore." She reached out a trembling hand, her form unraveling. "Go before the ground remembers." Then she was gone, fading into the air like smoke. The house shook again, harder this time. I ran for the door, but when I opened it, the hallway was gone. Instead, there was a long corridor of roots and soil, glowing faintly with red light. The air stank of iron and rot. I had no choice but to go forward. Each step squelched in the mud, and faint whispers echoed from the walls. Crying, laughing, pleading. Faces pressed against the roots. Human faces, their mouths opening and closing silently as I passed. My hands trembled, brushing the wall. It was warm, like skin. At the end of the tunnel, a faint light shimmered. I ran toward it, desperate, until I burst into a vast underground chamber. My stomach dropped. It was the same stone circle, only larger, deeper, glowing blood red this time. And at the center stood the creature again, taller than before, its head scraping the ceiling. The blood returns. It thundered. The gate opens once more. I turned to run, but behind me, the tunnel had closed. The creature lowered its head, and I could see faces swirling beneath its skin. My father's, grandma's, mine. "You cannot escape what you were born into," the creature said. "You are the continuation." Its voice cracked the ground, and the stones around it began to shift. From between them rose figures, hundreds of them, half buried in the earth, their bodies twisted, whispering the same word over and over: "Join." My head spun as I stumbled backward. "Why me?" I shouted. The creature leaned closer, its voice like thunder and whispers at once. "Because you remember," it said, "even if you try to forget." The faces beneath its skin screamed in unison, and I realized they were still alive. The red light intensified until it seared my eyes. I dropped to the ground, covering my face, feeling the earth shake beneath me. The chanting grew louder, Grandma's voice among them, crying, pleading, commanding. I could feel something rising beneath me, a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I dug my nails into the dirt, desperate to hold on to something real. Then, a blinding flash. Silence. When I opened my eyes, I was back in Grandma's backyard, kneeling beside the old tree. The sun was rising. Birds chirped softly. It looked like morning, but the lock in my hand was still warm, and inside it, the photo had changed again. This time, it showed me standing in the circle, smiling. I stared at the photo inside the locket, my stomach twisting into knots. It wasn't just a picture, it was moving. My reflection blinked, smiled wider, then slowly raised its hand and pointed directly at me. I dropped the locket instantly, my breath catching in my throat. The morning light felt wrong. Too still, too quiet. No wind, no birds, not even the sound of rustling leaves. The entire backyard seemed frozen in a single moment. My shadow stretched unnaturally long across the grass, twisting toward a mound of dirt near the old tree. Something beneath it shifted. The ground moved again, but slower this time, as if whatever was underneath was waiting for me to notice. I took a step back, but the earth pulsed like it was breathing. Then faintly I heard it, my father's voice. "Don't look away." My heart stopped. It was him. I hadn't heard that voice in years, not since the funeral. I turned slowly, half expecting to see nothing, but the air shimmered, and for a brief second I saw his face, pale, hollow-eyed, emerging from the dirt. "Finish it," he whispered, before the ground swallowed him again. Tears burned my eyes. "Finish what?" I screamed into the silence. The only answer was the distant sound of creaking wood from the house. I turned sharply toward it. The front door, which had been shut moments ago, now stood open again. A faint hum floated through the air, soft and melodic. The same lullaby Grandma used to sing. "Sleep, my child, the moon will hide." The melody pulled me like a rope around my chest. Against every instinct, I walked back toward the house. The closer I got, the more the air shimmered, like heat rising from a grave. The inside of the house looked different. The decay was gone. The dust had vanished. Everything was clean, bright, alive. The smell of bread and lavender filled the air. I stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the familiar furniture, the photographs, the ticking clock. "Grandma?" I called, my voice trembling. "Breakfast ready, sweetheart," came her cheerful reply. My blood ran cold. I turned toward the kitchen, and there she was, alive, smiling, apron on, humming softly. The morning light glowed on her face like nothing had ever happened. "Come sit," she said warmly. "You've been up all night again." I wanted to run, to scream, to tear at the illusion, but everything felt real. The warmth of the sunlight, the smell of coffee, even the sound of birds outside. I sat down slowly, my hands trembling. "You look tired," she said, placing a plate in front of me. Pancakes, my favorite as a kid. I stared at the food, heart racing. "Grandma," I whispered, "you're dead." She paused for a moment, then smiled again, too wide, too calm. "Oh, sweetheart," she said softly, brushing my hair with her cold fingers. "We all are." The words hit me like ice water. The walls began to breathe again, faintly at first, then faster. The sunlight dimmed. Grandma's eyes changed, black spreading slowly outward from her pupils. "You came back to stay," she whispered, her voice overlapping with another, deeper, older. I stood abruptly, knocking over the chair. "No," I said, backing away. But behind me, the hallway stretched longer and longer, twisting like a tunnel. Every door along it opened at once, and from each I heard whispers. "Join us! Stay! Finish what was started." The air grew thick with rot and whispers. My skin crawled. I turned and ran. The hallway seemed endless. No matter how far I ran, the kitchen stayed behind me. Grandma still standing there, smiling, watching. I felt the ground soften beneath my feet. The wood warped into soil, and the walls turned into roots. I tripped, landing hard on my knees. When I looked up, I was no longer inside the house. I was underground again, in that same red-lit tunnel of dirt and bone. My flashlight flickered weakly beside me. I grabbed it, shining ahead. The whispers had stopped. Only one voice remained, distant but clear. "It's time to remember." The tunnel led me into another chamber, smaller than the last, filled with old wooden boxes. I recognized them instantly. They were coffins. Some were open, revealing nothing but dirt and bones. Others were sealed tight. I moved closer to one and brushed away the dust. There was a name carved into the lid. My father's. My knees went weak. "No!" I whispered. The next coffin bore another name, my grandmother's. Then I saw the third one, smaller, freshly carved, but still damp. My name. My heart stopped. The lid wasn't nailed shut. It was slightly open. I stumbled back, shaking my head violently. No, I'm not dead. I'm not. But the walls began to hum again, the same tone from the circle vibrating deep in my bones. The lid of my coffin creaked open wider, and I saw something inside. A body, my body, pale, still eyes half open. I screamed, falling to the ground. The sound of laughter filled the air, grandma's, father's, even the child version of me. You've always been here, they said in unison. You just forgot. My vision blurred. The locket on my chest glowed faintly, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. The ground began to collapse beneath me. The coffin sank into darkness, the walls cracking open to reveal hundreds of faces screaming silently. I clutched the glowing locket, desperate to escape. I'm not one of you. I cried, but the voices only laughed. You are the last one, they whispered. You complete the circle. The red light engulfed everything, blinding me. I felt hands dragging me down, thousands of them, pulling me into the earth. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me completely was my grandmother's face, smiling, peaceful, whispering, "Welcome home, my child." When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the cold grass again. Dawn had broken. The soft orange light of morning spilled across Grandma's backyard. The house stood quietly, the doors shut, the windows still. For a moment, I thought I had dreamed it all. My hands trembled as I sat up, clutching the locket. It was cracked now, its glow gone. My clothes were damp with soil, and my fingernails were black with dirt, as if I'd been digging all night. I stared at the patch near the old tree. The ground was freshly disturbed, the shovel leaning beside it. I walked slowly toward the mound. My mind was blank, my body heavy, as though something inside me had been drained. A part of me wanted to leave, to run and never look back, but my feet wouldn't move. The mound called to me, humming faintly, the same low tone that had haunted me all night. I dropped to my knees and brushed away the loose dirt. There was beneath it, a box. My breath caught. I dug faster, clawing at the soil until my fingers hit the edge. The locket around my neck pulsed once, then went cold forever. When I finally uncovered the lid, I saw my name carved into it, rough and shallow. My stomach twisted, bile rising in my throat. "No!" I whispered, shaking. "No, no, no." I tried to back away, but my hand moved on its own, gripping the edge. The lid creaked open just enough for me to see what was inside. Not bones, not dirt, a mirror, perfectly polished, reflecting my horrified face. But the reflection didn't match me. It smiled, slowly, then whispered, "Welcome back." The mirror shattered, and black smoke poured from the box, swirling around me like fog. The air thickened. The house behind me groaned, boards cracking, windows shattering. The backyard warped, the sky dimming as if swallowed by storm clouds. I tried to run, but my legs felt heavy, my body sluggish, as if the earth itself held me down. The voice came again, softer now, almost kind. "You opened the door," it said. "Now you keep it." The ground split beneath me, forming a dark pit. The shovel fell in, clanging against something hollow. I reached out instinctively, but the pull was too strong. I was dragged to my knees, my scream swallowed by the wind. Then silence, pure, suffocating silence. I found myself standing in the center of the yard again. The pit was gone, the grass untouched. The house stood still and ordinary, like nothing had ever happened. I checked my phone. It was 12 a.m., midnight, again. My blood ran cold. I turned toward the tree, heart pounding. The locket was whole again, glowing faintly. My body shook uncontrollably. The world had reset. I was back where it started, trapped in a perfect loop. I fell to my knees, clutching my head, screaming into the empty night, but the wind carried my voice nowhere. That's when I heard the laughter. Faint at first, then louder, clearer. Children laughing. I turned toward the fence and saw them, the same 3 figures from the first night, standing still, watching. Only this time, they looked older, their faces clearer. One of them stepped forward. My breath caught. It was me, or what I used to be. The child version of me smiled sadly, tilting his head. "It's your turn now," he said softly. "Keep the circle." Then they all vanished, leaving only the echo of laughter in the cold air. I stumbled toward the house, desperate to escape, but when I reached the door, my reflection stared back from the glass. It was smiling again. "You can't leave," it whispered. "You never left." My reflection raised its hand, and the door opened on its own. Inside, the house was as I first seen it. Empty, decayed, lifeless. The faint hum filled the air again, vibrating deep in my skull. I looked down and saw dirt seeping from the cracks between the floorboards, spreading like veins. The whisper came again, louder now. "Welcome home, caretaker." I don't remember how long I stood there. Minutes, hours, maybe years. Time meant nothing. The house pulsed faintly, as though it were breathing. The walls were warm beneath my fingers, alive. I tried to leave, but every window showed only darkness outside, no stars, no moon. My shadow moved on its own, separating slowly from me. It turned, smiled, and whispered, "Sleep?" My body went cold. The last thing I felt was the floor giving way beneath my feet, the sensation of falling endlessly through earth and whispers. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting on the porch. Morning sunlight glowed gently across the grass. Birds sang in the trees. Everything was normal, peaceful, even the locket hung around my neck, warm. The pit beneath the tree was gone. I stood slowly, dizzy but alive. For a moment, I thought maybe it was finally over. But then I saw something carved into the tree's bark. He stayed. My hand trembled as I touched it. Fresh cuts, still bleeding sap. And from inside the house came that faint hum again, soft, patient, waiting. That was 3 years ago. The house still stands, untouched, the yard still quiet. But every night, exactly at 12 a.m., the back door opens by itself. Sometimes neighbors say they see a figure standing there, someone holding a small glowing locket. They say the air hums for a while, then goes silent again. If you ever pass by the old house at the edge of Willow Creek, don't stop. Don't look through the fence. And for God's sake, never, ever go near the backyard at midnight. Because once you hear the hum, it means the circle has found you too.